Aduwa stood nervously at the large iron gate, adjusting her scarf to cover her face, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never imagined she would return to this house, her house, disguised as a stranger. Taking a deep breath, she knocked firmly on the door. The door creaked open, and a stunningly beautiful woman stood before her, well dressed in expensive clothes and jewelry that glistened under the morning sun. Yes, the woman said, eyeing Aduwa from head to toe with thinly veiled disdain. How can I help you? Aduwa's throat tightened. This wasn't the warm welcome she had anticipated. She cleared her throat, her voice shaky. Am I in the right house? She asked cautiously. The woman's impatience was evident as she snapped, I said, how can I help you? Aduwa froze for a moment, her mind spinning. She never expected this. Please, is this Mr. Kenny's house? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, the woman replied, folding her arms. Who are you? I'm the new house help, Aduwa managed to say, trying to hold herself together. The woman raised her eyebrows in surprise. Oh, you're the one he hired? She asked, a hint of amusement in her tone. Well, come in. As Aduwa stepped inside, the woman continued, I'm Madam Easay, Kenny's wife. Aduwa's heart nearly stopped. Kenny's wife. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Kenny's wife, she repeated, her voice barely audible. Yes, Madam Easay replied curtly, looking irritated. Or are you deaf? Aduwa's heart raced as her world spun around her. She swallowed hard, trying to make sense of the situation. How can he have another wife? She thought. I told Kenny we didn't need any house help, Madam Easay continued, her tone bitter. That little brat of his should be doing all the chores around here. We're not feeding her for free. Aduwa's heart shattered into pieces. Little brat. She thought, trying to steady herself. Yes, his daughter from his late wife, Madam Easay said dismissively. But she's useless. Aduwa felt as if the ground had fallen beneath her feet. So, I'm dead. She thought bitterly. To my own husband, I'm dead. Her head spun, but she couldn't afford to let her emotions show. I'm here to do the job, Ma, Aduwa said, barely holding back her tears. Good, Madam Easay said, eyeing her suspiciously. I'll call Princess to show you to your room and around the house. I hope you can cook. Yes, Ma, Aduwa replied, her voice almost a whisper. Madam Easay yelled, Princess, and moments later, a frail, unkempt little girl appeared from the back of the house. Aduwa's heart clenched as she saw her daughter, dirty and disheveled, looking nothing like the bright child she had left behind. Take her to her room and show her around, Madam Easay commanded Princess, not sparing her a glance. The girl nodded timidly, her shoulders hunched in fear. As Princess led her mother through the house, Aduwa could barely contain her tears. They eventually sat in the kitchen, where Aduwa softly called out, Princess. Yes, Ma. Princess replied, not recognizing her own mother under the disguise. Where is your father? Aduwa asked, trying to control the tremor in her voice. He traveled for work, Princess replied. He'll be back tomorrow. And your real mother? Aduwa asked gently, afraid of the answer. My father said my mother died overseas. She was sick and had to go for treatment, but she never came back, Princess replied, her voice cracking as she blinked back tears. Aduwa's heart shattered into pieces. How could he tell our daughter I'm dead? She thought, her anger boiling. She reached out and gently stroked Princess's hand. "Don't worry, my child," she whispered. "I'll take care of you." The next day, Madam Easay handed Aduwa a long shopping list and some money. "Go to the market and buy everything here," she ordered. "My husband is coming back today, and I want you to prepare him something special, understand?" "Yes, Ma," Aduwa replied, her eyes burning with anger that she struggled to suppress. Madam Easay turned to Princess and sneered, "And you, brat, you will clean the sitting room, mop the kitchen floor, and dust everything before your father returns, do you hear me?" Aduwa couldn't take it anymore. "Madam, why are you making this little girl do all that work? She's just a child." Madam Easay's face twisted in fury. "Are you talking back to me in my own house? You've just started this job, and you're already giving me trouble. If you don't keep your mouth shut, I have you arrested. Now get out and go to the market." Aduwa clenched her fist, but she bit her tongue. She left the house, her heart heavy with pain. As she walked to the market, tears streamed down her face. "My daughter, suffering in her own home," she thought. And Kenny allowed this. When she returned from the market later that day, she found Princess crying in the kitchen, drenched in water. "What happened?" Aduwa asked, rushing to her. "Madam Easay poured water on me because I didn't clean fast enough," Princess sobbed. Aduwa's heart broke, and she wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Don't cry, my child," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Everything will be okay." That evening, Kenny returned home from his trip. He sat in the living room with Madam Easay, enjoying a meal prepared by Aduwa. He hadn't recognized his wife in her disguise. As they were done eating, Aduwa cleared the table. While Kenny and his wife Madam Easay were talking, Princess cautiously approached her father, sitting beside him. Madam Easay immediately lashed out, "What are you doing here? Get out, brat. Can't you see we're talking?" Princess ran out of the living room crying. Kenny frowned. "You don't have to be so harsh. She's still my daughter," he said. Madam Easay snorted. "She may be your daughter, but I'm carrying your son. She has no place here when adults are talking." That was the final straw. Aduwa stormed into the living room, unable to hold her anger any longer. "So because you're pregnant, you think you can treat a little girl like a slave in her own house?" she shouted. Kenny and Madam Easay turned in shock. "Who do you think you are, talking to us like that?" Kenny roared. "I will have you arrested. You're the one who should be ashamed." Aduwa spat. Kenny reached for his phone. "I'm calling the police, you'll be arrested tonight." As he dialed, Aduwa removed her disguise. Kenny's face went pale. "Baby," he whispered, dropping his phone. "When did you come back?" Madam Easay looked from Kenny to Aduwa, confusion on her face. "Who is she?" "This is my wife," Kenny muttered, falling to his knees. Madam Easay gasped in disbelief. Tears streamed down Aduwa's face. "After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me," she cried. "When we met you had nothing, but you were a bright man, looking like you got a great plans for the future. My family warned me about you, but I was too blinded by love. We got married and I brought you into my own company and made you chief of finance. We have a beautiful daughter together, and I thought we are the best couple in town. You had kidney problems and I donated my kidney to you, thinking I am saving my dear husband's life, and you got well, but I fell ill. From that operation, instead of you to stand by me, you asked me to place you in charge of the company so you can manage things. Immediately I did. You stopped coming to the hospital to check on me, till my own family had to fly me outside the country. you never asked of me one day, I almost lost my life because of you. In fact, to you I was dead already. Because that was what you told our daughter Princess, that I was dead and you brought this woman into my own house to reap where she did not sow. Kenny, what wrong did I do to you? Where did I ever wrong you? You were the reason I was in the hospital in the first place, trying to save your life, but when that affected my life, you chose another woman over me. I decided to tell myself that maybe you are too busy with the company, that is why you can't come to see me. I still defended you in front of my families even till now, and for me to come back after 1 year and decided to disguise myself to see your reaction when I get home, just to find my own daughter, a house help in her own house. And you approve of it, because she is pregnant with a son for you. Kenny was trembling. I'm sorry, baby. Please forgive me. Aduwa shook her head, her heart hardened. No. It's over. Pack your things and leave, you and your mistress. I don't want to see either of you in my house again. Kenny begged, but Aduwa stood firm. Leave now, or I have the police take you both. With no other choice, Kenny packed his things and left with Madame Easay. As he walked out the door, Aduwa called after him, and you're fired from my company. You never step foot in it again. Kenny looked back, his face a mask of anger and regret. You can't do that, he shouted. I built that company. No, I built it, Aduwa replied coldly. Now, get out. As Kenny disappeared into the night, Aduwa and Princess sat together, holding each other tightly. They had each other, and that was enough. In the days that followed, Aduwa sold the company and moved abroad with her daughter, starting a new life. Kenny, once a powerful man, struggled to survive, living in a small room and searching for work. But for Aduwa, the most important thing was that she had her daughter back. Together, they would heal and build a future filled with love and strength. As the years passed, Aduwa and Princess found peace in their new life abroad. They settled into a quiet town, far from the chaos and betrayal of their past. Aduwa opened a small bakery that quickly became popular in the community. It wasn't the high-powered business life she once knew, but it was filled with warmth, happiness, and most importantly, freedom. Princess, now a teenager, thrived in their new environment. She no longer carried the weight of her father's indifference or Madame Easay's cruelty. She was free to be a child, to laugh, to dream, and to explore life without fear. Aduwa watched her daughter grow with pride, her heart swelling with love each day. Though their lives had changed dramatically, the pain of the past occasionally surfaced. Sometimes, late at night, Aduwa would lie awake thinking about the life she had left behind, the life she had built with Kenny, and the betrayal that had shattered it all. But with each passing day, the pain dulled, replaced by the deep bond she shared with Princess. One sunny afternoon, as they sat on the porch of their modest home, sipping lemonade, Princess turned to her mother with a question that had been on her mind for some time. Mom, she began hesitantly, do you ever think about Dad? Aduwa took a deep breath, setting down her glass. She had known this question would come eventually. I do, she admitted softly. I think about him sometimes. Not because I miss him, but because I wonder how he could do what he did to us. Princess nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. Do you think he regrets it? Leaving us, I mean. Aduwa looked into her daughter's eyes and smiled sadly. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. But it doesn't matter anymore, my love. We have each other, and that's all that matters. Princess smiled and said, okay, Mom. Meanwhile, back in their home country, Kenny's life had taken a turn for the worse. After losing both his family and his business, he spiraled into a dark place. The respect he once commanded had vanished, and he found himself jobless, friendless, and filled with regret. Madam Easay, who had left him shortly after they were thrown out of the house, had moved on with her life, marrying another wealthy man. Kenny was left with nothing but memories of his former life, and those memories haunted him every day. He often wondered how things could have turned out differently. What if he had never betrayed Aduwa? What if he had appreciated her more? What if he had been a better father to Princess? These questions tormented him, but he knew the answers didn't matter. He had made his choices, and now he had to live with them. Years later, when Kenny found out that Aduwa and Princess had moved abroad, he made a desperate attempt to contact them. He sent letters, trying to explain himself, trying to ask for forgiveness, but none of his letters were answered. Aduwa had moved on, and she had no interest in reopening that chapter of her life. One day, as Aduwa and Princess walked through their quiet neighborhood, enjoying the fresh air and the blooming flowers, Aduwa received a call from an old friend who still lived in their hometown. Kenny passed away, the friend said gently. He had a heart attack. I thought you should know. Aduwa stood still for a moment, processing the news. She wasn't sure how to feel. There was no relief, no joy in hearing about Kenny's death, but there was also no sadness. She simply felt nothing. Thank you for letting me know, Aduwa replied softly, ending the call. She looked at Princess, who was busy admiring a butterfly that had landed on a flower nearby. Her daughter's laughter filled the air, and Aduwa smiled. Everything all right, Mom? Princess asked, noticing her mother's quietness. Aduwa nodded, her heart filled with a sense of peace. Yes, sweetheart. Everything's just fine. As they continued their walk, Aduwa realized that she had finally let go of the past. Kenny was gone, but her life, their life, was full of hope and promise. She had rebuilt her world, brick by brick, and nothing could tear it down again. Together, Aduwa and Princess walked toward the future, leaving behind the shadows of the past forever. But as Aduwa continued in her life of peace with her daughter, the thought always comes back to her. What if I had forgiven Kenny? Maybe he might still be alive. Maybe we might have fixed things, since Princess still needs a father in her life. Will I ever find someone that will love Princess like a father should? That thought haunted her every time she remembers Kenny. Story ends. Do you think Aduwa should have forgiven Kenny because of their daughter Princess? Or do you feel she made the right decision? Let us know in the comment section. Moral of this story. Sometimes we get it right and marry the best partners. Sometimes we miss it, thinking we got it right. The hearts of men can never be revealed until something that will test him or her shows up. Be careful with who you marry. Make sure that, aside love, he or she got your back for life. Because when you miss it, getting it right might never come easy. And years wasted can never be recovered. I remain Uncle Sam. Stay safe.